The biggest reason people give for not starting their own business is lack of time. This challenge becomes even more daunting when you need to write all the code yourself. Like, how do you find 50 plus hours to build an MVP, plus the marketing and the sales and the talking to customers, all while juggling work and life commitments? I've been a full-time software engineer for over 14 years, and in the last year I've built 3 apps, launched a 42-part course and uploaded 1 video a week to this channel. Through trial and error, I think I've developed a pretty solid system to manage all of this without burning out. So here are 6 tips to help you manage your time as a solo founder while working a 9 to 5. And stick around to the end for a hack that will literally save you hundreds of hours of time. So the first tip is to have a consistent block of time every single day to work on your products. Think of the difference, right, between spending 10 hours on a Sunday working on an app versus 2 hours a day across a 5-day period. When you have these breaks between sessions, you come back with new insights, a fresh mind, and you're just way more efficient at working this way. You also have far less chance of getting burnt out or getting exhausted by having gaps in between the working sessions. This idea is true for anything: fitness, health, learning the guitar, and it also applies to building apps as well. It's basically just spaced repetition learning, and it's pretty proven that that is a really effective way to learn. With that consistency, even include weekends. So for me, I pick a 2-hour block. It's sometime between 6 and 9 a.m. every single day, including Saturdays and Sundays, which roughly gives me about 14 hours per week to work on anything that I want. It could be the YouTube, products. I'll just switch around per day depending on what the plan is and what things I need to actually get done. This means that I can still allocate myself time in the evening to spend time with friends or family and actually give myself time to relax. Because when you can sort of put things into a box, it doesn't mean that you have to spend all evening worrying that you weren't as efficient with your time today. And it also sort of prevents things from leaking over to the rest of your life. When you say, okay, I don't have to worry about it this evening because I know I'm going to get up the next morning and work on that product. If you do this consistently over the period of a couple of months, you can get a huge amount of work done. Like, this has been unbelievable for me to not get burnt out, be really efficient with my time, and get basically a shitload of work done in that time as well. This brings me to the next point, which is deep versus light work. So again, with the analogy of working for a 10-hour block of time, it's basically impossible for you to focus deeply across a 10-hour period. You'll end up looking on YouTube, social media, checking your phone, and this is just drastically less efficient than having a 2-hour solid block where you remove all distractions and focus purely at the task at hand. So pick a time that's small enough that you can manage every single day and just see the results that you'll get over a few weeks' time, rather than just wasting entire weekends on things through inefficiency. The next point is to outsource the tasks that you're less efficient with. So think of the skill that gives you the biggest advantage. For most people watching this, it's probably writing code. So optimize for writing the code that the user actually sees, and then just outsource all of the other stuff. Design, for example, is a good one. I could design a pretty decent looking app, but I'm definitely not going to be efficient at that because it's not what I do day to day. So instead, I'll go on websites like UI8 and spend $20 on a template that I can just reuse. Or I'll use tools like Tailwind UI, which have pre-existing UI already built. So just spend $200 one-time fee, and you can use that on any project moving forward. One of the things people hit back on this point with is when you use these tools or frameworks, a lot of your apps can tend to look similar to other apps online. But does your customer actually care about that? Or do they just care about having their problem solved? So my opinion on that is, as long as it looks good enough and you're actually solving the user's problem, just optimize for that instead and don't waste a bunch of time on things that you're less efficient with. This also moves on to the next point of not reinventing the wheel. Now, as developers, we love building things. And this means if you decide you want to put a blog up, you'll say, well, I'll just write from scratch. It's easy to do it that way. But we need to stop lying to ourselves about what is the actual intended outcome of us waking up every day and working around our day jobs. Like, why are we actually doing this? We tell ourselves, well, at least I learned something. So you spend hundreds of hours building all of these extra tools that you could have just used a pre-existing SaaS just to have the cop out of saying, well, at least I learned something along the way. We need to constantly reevaluate why we're actually doing these things. And that is typically getting a product in front of a customer to get feedback. So optimize for those things. Use pre-existing tools or services, SaaS platforms, NPM modules, whatever. Just don't try and reinvent the wheel every single time. The next point is to simplify everything. And I've touched on this in more detail in other videos. In terms of infrastructure, for example, you might need an SQS queue, a Redis cache, a MongoDB NoSQL database, and then maybe a relational Postgres database. Typically, you can just take all of these tools and just push them into just Postgres. And the point of doing this is not that that's the best tool for the job. It's that you're trying to reduce the infrastructure burden and the maintenance burden as much as possible so you can continue to move quickly. Because when you start any project, things are moving fast, but over time, as the tech debt builds up and as the infrastructure gets more complex, you'll start to move more and more slowly. So instead, try and optimize for simplicity so you can continue to move really quickly, even when you're 1 to 2 months into a project. Now, the last point, and this is by far the most important one, is to validate everything before you write a single line of code. If done right, you can literally save hundreds of hours doing this, because you can literally prevent yourself from spending 100 hours building a product that nobody wants. So stop being reckless with your time. Talk to customers. I know it's uncomfortable, but we just need to get into this mindset of validation. So go online, check that people are actually talking about the problem. Find the customers that are actually willing to talk to you about the problem, do the keyword research and all the common stuff. And this isn't just true for the overall idea. This is true for every feature that you add into the app. So if you can just spend an hour or two validating now that what you're building actually has a real world problem, then that 1 or 2 hours will pay massive dividends in saving you potentially hundreds of hours building things nobody wants. So choose small, consistent blocks of time every day. Optimize for deep work sessions. Outsource tasks that you're less efficient with and don't try and reinvent the wheel. Optimize for simplicity and validate everything. Optimizing for these things has allowed me to get a huge amount of work done whilst continuing to work a 9 to 5 as a software contractor. So really try and optimize for these things. If you like this video and want to see more like it, please subscribe. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you in the next one.